Hello everyone, welcome back to the lab where we discuss everything 6-scale collecting and customizing. Today we're going to be discussing your recipe of ingredients that you're going to need to create your custom 6-scale action figure. When everyone gets their first Hot Toys figure and they open this guy up, they look at it with amazement. It's remarkable, the accuracy of the sculpt, the quality of the figure. And then they put it up on the shelf, and then they start to get this incredible wave of guilt that their figure is up there all alone. So of course you need another figure to go along with that, and then so forth. It keeps going on because you're going to collect more and more and more. It would be very boring if your figures were all the same size, same height. So in today's modern collecting, you have a huge variety to choose from, and even some selection on the height of the figure. This is a custom blade figure that I did. It's a kit bash. I bought the head sculpt and the glasses and the boots. I made the rest of the outfit myself, and I bought the underlying body. Now this is a clone of the True Type 19 body, and great versatile body. 30 points of articulation, can hold pretty much any pose. It's a great base to work with. Now that works fine if that's the look of your figure. Remember, if you're going to have this on your shelf, you're going to want figures that are different heights, different body styles, and things like that. And these things are available to you, but some will cost you more money. Now, typically speaking, if I had to make someone who's a little bit thicker than this, you would create a fat suit and put it on underneath it, okay? And that would like kind of flesh out the body a little bit. Unfortunately, when this usually happens, when they create a figure like this, the added bulk of the fabric restricts mobility and articulation in the figure. There are some different options, like the Worldbox company has put out different body types, like this one, for example. Now, Worldbox is significantly heavier. It's about 3 times the weight of an average, typical generic figure. The articulation is very good on it. It's a little bit limited because everything is sculpted on it. But as long as you're sure that you're not going to be insulting your subject when you send a figure like this to them, you'll be okay, and you'll be a little bit more accurate. Now, this body here will run you the body itself. If you're looking for like a Caucasian skin tone or an Asian skin tone, you can pick them up anywhere between, say, $16 and $19. The darker skin figures you're going to find are a little bit more expensive because they're not created in the same quantities. So this will run you probably about $22 here. The Worldbox figures are significantly more expensive, and like this one here, the plump body, will run you about $70, $65 to $70, depending upon where you pick it up from. They do have other versions which are of higher quality, but and more dense, but also a little bit more expensive, so probably in the neighborhood of anywhere between $35 to $50. So depending upon what kind of figure you want and what kind of durability you want with it, those are available to you. If it's just a generic figure that you're putting up on your shelf as maybe a background prop character, you might not want to invest that much. Today we're going to be discussing the female figures and some of the differences in there. Now, when I first started creating custom figures from the YouTube creators that I watch, I used my own research to try and figure out how big people were, what size proportion of body types and so forth that you would have in there. Now, for the most part, the standard body will work pretty well, but if you have a larger figure, like say Drunk 3PO, his figure, the base body on that runs about $35. It's called a gang hood body. It's significantly heavier, larger, and stands taller than the other ones. So if you have it on the shelf, and you have, like, ultimately, say you have a shelf full of Geeks and Gamers action figures, you obviously don't want the Drunk 3PO, the Jeremy, the Ryan figures all the same height. You're going to want some variation to reflect a little bit of reality. So the same goes with the female figures, only it goes into a couple other ranges there too. So some of the things you want to consider before you start creating your body. Now, what I used to do was just collect this information on my own. Now I'm starting to just reach out to my subject themselves so I can get an idea about like their input. And I think it works out a little better because they actually get to contribute something to the creation of their figure. This is the endoskeleton to the typical female body. Very articulated, and this has a rubber overlay of the midsection, and the bust is a separate piece here, so that you have mobility and it can move around but still looks natural. Um, this tends to be about, like, this is the Scarlett Johansson Black Widow figure from Winter Soldier. Okay. Now, if you compare this to the height of something, say, this size, okay, of this Blade figure, it's significantly smaller, which would be a good scale and proportion to go into. Of course, not every woman is the same height. Now, this is a Black Widow, Scarlet Witch figure, I'm sorry, that I picked up. This is a kit bash as well. I'd missed out on the Hot Toys version, and so before the WandaVision version comes along, this is going to be my stand-in. It's a third-party head sculpt and outfit. But as you can see, it's significantly taller than the Black Widow figure. Now, depending upon your subject, if your subject is on the shorter side, you're going to want a smaller body because chances are they're going to be standing next to a figure who might be taller than them and you want it to look realistic. Now, this is the Pop Toys body that I tend to use for most of my female customs. I find it sits very naturally and it doesn't look stiff and rigid, and you can get some very natural looking poses. This is the pale version here, and this is the suntan version. So if your subject is a little bit darker complected, you might want to opt for this. Okay, the articulation is great, and yes, the figures have to be covered up, or YouTube will hit me with a violation because I featured nudity, even though it's on a headless action figure. Okay, so now you want to keep in mind of some of the costs incurred with this. So if I have just a basic figure body here, and it's just going to be a generic background character, it's not going to matter too much. I can just probably buy the basic one here. Female bodies tend to be a little bit more expensive than the male bodies, probably because like there's more of a demand for male figures because collectors tend to be men. And so you have this here. This will run you about $20 to $23 for this one. The Pop Toys bodies are a little bit more expensive. So like the best price I've found is about $26, and that's from some companies over in Hong Kong. And ordinarily they offer free shipping, but because of the current worldwide conditions, there's a restriction on shipping to the United States from Hong Kong. So now the price has jumped up an extra $20 for shipping. So like this one here, I picked up, and for a smaller lady who's going to have this figure, so this cost about $33 for that one. Now, each of the female figures, as I said, you have differences in complexion, difference height, but also in bust size. Okay, so you're going to have some figures that are larger and some of them smaller. And this is where I find it's really helpful to put that out there right to the subject themselves to let them make the choice there. That way, you're not being accused of misrepresenting their bodies. So this way, it's their choice, and it's something that they're going to be happier with overall. Okay, along with the female figures of the body, once you get past that part, you need to look at like the hair. Okay, so the female figures in many cases comes with rooted hair. Now the rooted hair is actually a wig that attaches to the back of the head, and they come in many different colors, straightnesses, curls. The only thing I haven't really found is a tight curled hair, so that's a little bit more difficult to do, although there are some techniques that you can actually use to create this effect yourself. which my daughter was kind enough to inform me of from her experience with her American Girl dolls. So that gives you an idea about what it is you're looking for when you're creating your figure. So some of the body itself, if you go for an average like taller body, this is going to run you about $23, and the hair usually is about $12 per wig. As I said, the Pop Toys bodies are a little bit more expensive, but if your display is going to be a little bit more important to you, then you want to make that investment for them. And of course, then you have the footwear. Now, there's some footwear that comes along that, like, the shoe can actually fit right on top of the foot mold, but there's others that you pop this off, and the ball joint itself actually goes into the shoe, so it looks a little bit more natural, and you don't have to worry about like the foot moving around inside the shoe that's going to knock off the balance of the figure and end up having them fall, and then you have a catastrophe where, unfortunately, some of these things aren't as sturdy as we might like them to be. Okay, which brings us to another point too. Like when you do have a figure and they all come with interchangeable hands, make sure before you try to remove anything, hit it with a blow dryer for 30-40 seconds to soften up that rubber and pop it off. It's much nicer than having to replace a wrist peg that's snapped off inside, which is very, very frustrating. So that's your general overview of what you're looking at for your 6-scale custom figures, as far as your ingredients for the body, the wig, and some of the boots and interchangeable hands that you might have. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, and leave a comment if you have any questions, and hopefully I'll try to get back on that and answer them. Thank you for watching.